I consider it an affront to my family that you haven't heard about Anchor. It's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. Okay, let me just lay this out for you. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And get this, okay? Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money, moolah, from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Open loops. Open loops. Open loops. Open loops. Open loops. You must listen to the open loops, a theme park for absurd beliefs and systems of integration between the mind and the creative spirit. Open loops.
Craving some intellectual stimulation? What if there was a place you could always go when you needed to expand your mind? A place where head trips were treated like destination resorts. Welcome to Open Loops, a theme park for your intellect and imagination. I'm your chief looper, your curator of experience, Greg Bornstein. Thank you so much for listening today. You are in for something special. This is going to blow your brains up a little bit. It definitely did mine. It was an extremely fun conversation. Isha Patel was an engineer and then started channeling beings from all 13 dimensions. Now that is a story I definitely wanted to entertain. And not only did it entertain me to have her on, but she also gave me a nudge towards awakening. That's kind of what I want the theme of this week today. I'm releasing an episode every day this week, and it started with interview wise, that is. It started with David Daniel Gonzalez, my last episode, who is he has a show called Mystic Skeptic Radio, though he's a skeptic. And then Isha, who is like kind of the complete opposite. She is an utter believer. I mean, I actually took part in a 2-day workshop, virtual workshop called The Awakening, where it was just the tip of the iceberg of this stuff. But I mean, we did these meditations, and at the end, someone was like, "Yes, I saw the starship," and Isha was like, "Yeah, that's what I was sending you with my consciousness." Now, that's wild stuff. Does Greg Bornstein believe it? Not in this episode. Certainly, I mean, there were some things that definitely resonated with me, which tells me that I do believe it. But she definitely opened the door by being so extreme and so cosmic and so intergalactic in the message that she was spreading. She definitely like laid a foundation for me to in future episodes, including one coming up with one of her students. I started understanding many more things. Like she laid the foundation for my future, I guess, if I were to put it in quotes, expansion. So let's rock the foundation. Let's get it going. Isha Patel, an amazing guest. If you enjoy the Open Loops podcast, please do subscribe, rate, and leave a review so we can keep expanding minds. And this was a blast. I really loved talking to Isha. Enjoy. This is very strange. Yes. Isha Patel is here.
I
she,
am.
she is here very early in Australia talking to me. You are this is what I'm so fascinated by with you, Isha. A multi-dimensional awakening expert.
Correct.
Multi-dimensional awakening expert. For people that don't understand what that means, let's start there. I know it's the most boring podcast question of the world, but it's such an interesting topic. So let's what does that mean exactly?
Well, exactly as it sounds. I help people awaken to their multidimensional awareness, which is really coming through the understanding that we live in a world that is primarily spiritual rather than physical. So it's acknowledging the spaces beyond the physical material reality into the dimensions of spirituality, which are metaphysical or esoteric by nature. And so I help people to awaken that capacity within themselves through spiritual meditations, activations, tools, and processes that I take people through that essentially help them to open their heart gateways, which is really a cosmic portal to universal consciousness. And then I teach people how to tap into that, utilize that, and also ground that into 3D in a very practical way, which gives them benefits in their health, in their businesses, their relationships, and so on.
Right. Now, here's the thing that's interesting to me about this. I'm like, how in the world? Because looking at everything you're doing, your tagline is helping seven-figure coaches, speakers, and entrepreneurs 10x their transformational and healing abilities. That tells me, and looking over your material and sort of researching you a bit, Isha, I'm like, huh, you have managed to bring the corporate world into the conversation about things that are a little more mystical, a little more out there traditionally. And, in America, I feel like that is such a hard path for people to navigate. Like when you're like, I have a hypnotherapy background, and when they talk about like, you're going to be a hypnotist and talk to corporate groups, they're like, but you don't say hypnosis in front of corporations. You say like, I'm a mindset expert. I give you mind hacks. Like you have to adjust it. But you're like, no, we're going into quantum physics. We're going to healing. We're going into like, like interdimensional beings. How have you managed to make that work for yourself?
Well, would you believe that actually a lot of people that are in those high end, particularly coaching, healing, and entrepreneurial spaces are actually all over this? And this is where I was very pleasantly surprised to discover that the people that are least expected to be interested in this sort of thing were actually utilizing a lot of this stuff already to their advantage. So, I mean, I have so many stories. For example, 5 years ago, I walked into the room of my first mentor and he was a business coach. And I thought I was going to a 2 day business event. And then suddenly he's doing a shamanic drumming ceremony and there's all this like magical meditation stuff. And I was like, oh my
Right,
God, I found my tribe.
right,
And the same thing happened again 2 years later with my next mentor that I started working with. And yeah, about halfway through one of her events on the first day, she got up on stage and she started sharing this story about Tony Robbins and how Tony Robbins had this energy healer that he was seeing. And she started sharing all this stuff about, spirituality and crystals. And again, it was like a jaw-dropping moment of, oh shit, I've just walked into like a high-end business coaching program. And
right.
suddenly these people are really interested in this sort of work. So I was actually, yeah, very surprised to see that it was already in the space. And that actually gave me the inroad to take more of my skills into that space, knowing that there was already a market for that.
That's so interesting. So were you doing like more of I guess I kind of imagine it being like, oh man, what you see when they're pamphlets. I feel like I live in Brooklyn, so I normally like that you see, like a soul gazing workshop. And I just imagine it's a group of like 15 people who, probably aren't like necessarily business people, some gathered around or like a meditation circle. I imagine it's normally like middle to upper middle class people who
maybe like they're school teachers, but they have a hot habit, and they like doing this kind of stuff. I'm totally just generalizing right now, but there's a certain type of person I definitely feel like that is more prone to. I mean, I have a lot of actor friends that read tarot cards. They wouldn't consider themselves like executive coaches. Were you dealing with like that sort of like entryway new age market initially, and
Yeah.
then okay,
Yeah,
interesting.
absolutely. I've done the by donation classes. I've done the $20 meditation classes that never filled up. I've
Right.
done people that expected everything for free. The people that just messaged me on Facebook at 3 o'clock in the morning saying, "Will you give me a reading?" Like, yeah, I've definitely been there.
Yeah.
And look, there's a space for that. There's definitely a space for people who are not coaches and entrepreneurs, and people who are really in it for their own personal development and their journey as well. And I think it just depends on, for me personally, it's like, how do I make the biggest impact?
Yeah.
And so while I've definitely done that end of the spectrum, at the moment I'm just focusing on a different area, because I just see there's a greater scope for impact through the commercial and the business space than there is with the general public, because I find that I come across a lot of skepticism with the general public as well,
Right.
particularly with like people who are. So I come from an engineering background. I actually have a bachelor's of electrical and electronic
Oh,
engineering.
that's interesting.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then I have a master's in teaching. So I've come through a very academic pathway, and I just am very well familiar with that world as well. And so what I see is a lot of the people that aren't in the entrepreneurial spaces, and this is a huge generalization here, definitely doesn't apply to everyone, but a lot of those people can be quite skeptical. They want to see results. Like, people are always asking me, do you have a peer reviewed study on this? And then on the other end of that spectrum, there are the people that are like fully into the conspiracy theories. They're like, fuck the government. Like, I have
Right.
that audience as well. But I find
Yes.
that where the sweet spot is are actually the high earning entrepreneurs who understand that spirituality can be utilized to make a very positive, large scale impact on the world.
Very interesting. So are you, I mean, how often are you running into people that are like, I was told that you are great and you have you come from this background, but I'm skeptical. And they're entrepreneurs. Do you ever have to deal with that? Do you ever have to like convince these guys that it's worth talking to you?
I would not bother convincing people to talk to me if they don't see
Really?
the value in that from straight
Yeah.
up. Um, yeah, gosh, I'll be like, see you later in a few years once I've taught everybody else, and you finally catch on that it's a cool thing to do.
Yeah, totally.
There's enough people out there that are actually searching this and asking for this, that the people that are putting that sort of attitude in front of me, I'm just like, cool, step aside, catch you later.
Wow, wow. Okay, so Isha, you got to explain this to me. Electrical engineer, academic background, then you become a multi-dimension. You're becoming like this multi-dimensional awakening expert. What in the world happened that you even became open to any degree of the possibility of something beyond material reality?
Right. Well, I had my first spiritual mentor when I was about 19 or 20. I'm a bit vague on the details now. It's been nearly a decade.
Wow.
Um, and back then, even earlier than that, as a child, I had quite a lot of quite out there spiritual and metaphysical experiences, including a house that was haunted when I was a child. So we
Oh, wait
used
a
to
minute, wait a minute.
have,
What did that mean? Yeah, are you going to go into that, please? Tell me, how
yeah,
do you know it was haunted?
well, we saw this woman walking around, and by we, I mean like multiple members of my family saw this. So we'd hear footsteps in the night. There'd be like just lights and taps and things going on and off,
Right.
um, and I come from an Indian, background as well. So spirituality is not something that's completely out of the unknown for us. It's just a slightly different pathway. And so I grew up, believing in the concept of at least spirits and God and like all of
Yeah.
that. But yeah, when we moved into this house at 9 years old, and suddenly, there's all this crazy stuff happening in the house, and not just me, but like my sister seeing this ghost and my mom seeing this ghost, and there's a shared experience there. So then what we did one time, this gets crazy. I don't think I've ever shared this particular story publicly before, but it's a good one to go into.
Please, please.
Yeah, you're getting all the exclusives today. So yeah, with this particular ghost, what happened was my mum called the Hindu, we call them a Panditji, which is like the priest from the temple, to come and do a clearing on the house. So he came and he did a whole ceremony. They call it a puja, which is like a cleansing sort of ceremony on the house.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he did the ceremony, and then he did this particular technique where he got this lemon, and the idea was that you trap the spirits inside this lemon, and he bound it all up in this rope, and we all watched him do it, and then he places it in this water and he chants his thing, and then he leaves. And then the next morning we were supposed to take that, and we were supposed to once it had trapped the spirit, that was a concept behind the thing, it's going to trap the spirit, and we were supposed to take the trapped spirit and take it to the ocean to get cleansed, right? So the next morning, we got up, and then my parents went to go check this thing, and the craziest thing happened. So they got to this thing that had been, this lemon that had been wrapped in the rope, and the rope was intact, like in a circle, like in formation, and the lemon had disappeared.
What?
Yeah, I know, crazy. But then the Bandiji called my parents like within minutes and was like, "It's gone, isn't it?" Like he knew what had happened without us telling him. Yeah, I know. It was so crazy. I still get goosebumps as I say it. So this I think was probably around the age of like 10 or 11, maybe 12. So I was exposed to this stuff quite early on.
Did you have any doubts when you were in school? I mean, did you start, like, I just feel like every person that I've met that, seriously does electrical engineering. I shouldn't say every person, but there are a lot of people that would be so like, they dismiss it. They'd be like, "Oh, that was kind of like a weird hallucinatory dream period of my childhood. I'm not even sure that happened. Like, I know what science is." Like, or did you carry that with you throughout school?
Well, I think, there was a lot of stuff happening in parallel, because at home I did have my spiritual life, and we did visit the temple with my family, and, prayer was normal in our household. And then we actually went to a Catholic school as well. So then we learned all about Jesus and the parables. And so,
Interesting.
we came from a very diverse, open background. My parents come from diversity as well, because my mum is Hindu, my dad is Muslim, and that back when they got married in India was very controversial. So knowing that whole story and that history, and then having grown up with these religious experiences, I guess my parents were very open-minded, and when they put us into education, they were very happy for us to go to a Catholic school. So I grew up going to mass, and I was never baptized or anything, so I didn't take communion or anything like that, but just going along to all the school experiences, and being part of like the confirmation experience in year 7, and going through all of that, and just being able to see that, okay, different people have different beliefs, and so that in itself allowed me to stay very open-minded. So then when I did get to university and I started, doing this engineering thing, like I understood, the science behind all of it, but I still had this stream of questioning. And I think that's in many ways actually where science and spirituality come together, because both of them allowed me to question the universe. And also, neither of them, in my opinion, at that time for me, had the complete answer.
Interesting. So have you found the complete answer? Could you share that with, could you share that with my audience, please?
Well, I've got my version of it. I think there's always, so much exploration and openings that can happen in this space. I certainly feel like I've discovered a lot along the way, and I've certainly discovered things that go beyond what my scientific framework had taught me. For example, so I work with energy healing. That's my primary sort of thing that I discovered. And the way that I received this information was through channeling. So that's considered scientifically like non-validatable, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But when I received this information and actually started first practicing it on myself and then facilitating for others, people started getting amazing results. And for me, that was the verification that I needed, that there was something in this. So, for example, like, I mean, I've got so many examples now, but even back in the day, it was like the first sort of, the 4-minute mile, if you want to call it that, for me, was when I had this experience of somebody coming to one of my group events, and she was supposed to go into surgery. And after coming to my event, she felt like in her body, she could feel the energy was shifting and you know, stuff was happening in her body. And then she went to her surgeon 3 days later, and the surgeon was like, this thing has completely gone away. Like, we can't explain it,
Wow.
you know? And when that
Wow.
happened in one of my event rooms, I was like, holy shit, like I need to explore this further. So since
Yeah.
then, it's just been more questioning, more exploring. How does this work? Can this work? It started off with a theory. You know, my theory was this. So back in 2016, my theory was this, that if you understand consciousness, everything comes from source. And if you accept that as fact, let's assume for the purposes of this conversation that that is true, then everything that came from source can go back to source. So when you have something in the body, like a physical illness or disease or something like that, even that little tiny cell that is currently in a state of whatever density that it's in, at some point was still connected to source. And if you
Right.
also
Right.
understand the concept that that time is only a construct of the material, you know, this third dimensional density that we're in, then knowing that consciousness exists beyond time and space, can you shift the consciousness of that physical cell to a point where that disease did not exist? That was my theory. And I've spent years testing this out and have actually found that it works. So through my processes of energetic healing, I've discovered that using certain energetic tools and processes and consciousness, I can literally look at somebody's energetic field. And I mean, there's a lot more complexity than I'm describing it right now. There's definitely a few steps along the way, but you can actually look at their energy field, use your consciousness to shift the consciousness of that vibration, and it can shift to the point where last I think, what month was it in? Oh, this February, actually, this year, I ran an event and somebody walked into my room. We had 40 people in a room. By lunchtime, the ladies had a full body spontaneous healing, you know. And I looked at that and I was like, well, how would any medical professional explain that? Now I can explain it because I know what I was doing to facilitate that, right? And I've been able to replicate the process, and actually I teach people now how to be origin activation facilitators as well, and they take this concept and they then are able to facilitate results for their clients too. And when I was able to do that, I was like, okay, this is now verifiable, you can replicate it, you know, it has consistent results. Like that now has a basis for something that is a little bit more, I guess, acceptable in more of a research type community. But it's still very early stages, like very, very early stages in what I'm doing.
Wow. Do I have COVID?
No.
Can you tell? Can I be cured, please? No.
I'm not going there.
Oh yes. Oh, that's right. You're kidding. You've got the conspiracy community, which means could mean it might not be.
Right now is just asking for trouble. I put a post about COVID the other day and got so much backlash. I'm just like, I'm not going there.
Are you? I mean, I'm very curious. Like, are you like in the kind of oh my gosh, this is such a dark question, but I have to ask. Are you like one of these you know, like, yes, COVID's bad, but child sex trafficking is also terrible?
Well, they are both bad.
Well, they are both bad, yes, but you know what I mean? Like, people are pitting that against each other. Okay, just tell me the truth right now. Hollywood, are they evil? Tom Hanks, all these guys. What do you think?
Look, I try and steer far away from this conversation.
You have thoughts. I know you have answers. I know what you're thinking, Isha. No, I don't want to get you in trouble. I don't want to get you in trouble.
Let me give you the basis behind this. So where attention goes, energy flows. Right? Now, I'm very aware of what's happening in a lot of these spaces, but I'm also very aware that we're conscious creators our reality. And so where I direct my energy is actually like, okay, do you guys have you guys probably don't have Grilled over there, but we have a shop called Grilled here in Australia. It's like a burger shop. And each time you buy a burger, you get given a little token, and then your local store has these 3 jars, and you get to choose if you want to give your token to like a school, like a sports club, or a charity, or like a women's group, or whatever it might be. And you have these 3 options. Now, the way that I see it is that actually in every single moment, your thought is like putting a token into somebody's basket of energy, right? So every time you talk about something or you put your energy into something, you're actually giving it more momentum, and in some
Right.
of these spaces just don't need my energy or anyone's energy for
This
that
is
matter.
interesting. So do you deal with, I mean, this is what's, I think is, I had a conversation with somebody about this yesterday, actually, about the fact that the new age, if you could call, I mean, I hope that there's another word that goes into the milieu, because I think new age has a lot of kind of negative connotations at this point, but people who are in this space that is esoteric, a little more mystical, a little more metaphysical, often there is an overlap with the conspiracy community. A lot of people, like you mentioned, they're drawn to you. And the thing I was talking about yesterday was the idea that it's weird to me that there's so many people that practice like healing and clearing chakra energy and connecting with the one source, but also are bringing up so much distrustful energy of institutions, of the people in charge, of, like even look at the truth, read between the lines, can't you see what's actually happening on here, take the red pill, like literally they are pushing a truth drug onto people to wake up. How can you reconcile the fact that some people want to be one with the universe and help people get there, and also bring up such a dark viewpoint towards distrust of all the institutions around us?
Well, it's just part of the process of awakening. I mean, I see people go through that journey all the time. There's so many stages to the evolution, and I've been in that space myself, so I fully understand where these people are at. And I have a lot of compassion for that space, because if you imagine, you've been living your whole life just thinking that this is what the world is, and that you're gonna, you're born, and then you go to school, and then you have a job, and then you're gonna get married, and like that's basically your life, and then you die and nothing else happens after that, right?
Yeah.
And then suddenly you have this moment of awareness where you realize that actually there's something else out there. There's a spirit, there's an energy, there's something that's greater than I, and you start to explore that. And as you go down that rabbit hole, you actually realize that a lot of this stuff hasn't been told to the general public, and that people don't know the truth, and that actually the government is hiding a lot of stuff from a lot of people. And, the deeper you go into that, you realize that there is actually so much left to be explored. And then you realize that the majority of what's being taught in schools and like the general sort of media and stuff like that is like this tiny little fraction of what people want you to see, and it's all controlled by the people that don't want you to awaken, right?
Right.
But
Right.
here's the thing: when you cross that barrier into that awareness, and there is a big difference between awareness and awakening, and I will get to that in a second.
Oh, please.
That's
Yeah, very
the
interesting.
awareness. That's the awareness phase, right? Where intellectually you become aware that there's something else out there, but really when you actually go into that and you start seeking wisdom within rather than looking at what's happening out there, because that's what it did for me. I looked out there and went, it's all shit. Like the whole thing's turned to shit.
Yeah.
I was like, what do I do? And so I had to go this way. I had to go in, and I started meditating. And from awareness, I went into awakening. And awakening is actually an experience that I feel is so difficult to put into words. But in that moment, you do recognize your oneness with the universe. And that happened for me. After doing these processes that I'd been taught from my mentor back when I was in my late teens, early 20s, it was called the Merkaba activation. So I was activating my light field every single day. And after about a year and a half of doing that, I had this moment of awakening where I was literally one with the universe. Like my body dissolved, and I was just like this expansive consciousness, and I got it. I was like, oh, like this
Wow.
this is it, right? And it's an experiential thing. And that, to be honest, that was just like one of those moments of awakening, because then like life happened and I went back to finishing my studies, and I had a boyfriend, and did all the things that people do. But then it wasn't until I was about 25 where I just went through another massive layer of that awakening. And that was really the pivotal moment where I felt this energetic expansion that was so big. And suddenly I woke up the next morning and the colors were brighter and the sounds were like sweeter, and like something had shifted, and it took me months to realize what was actually happening in that process. But it was just this massive, rapid vibrational shift that was going on. And within a few weeks of that experience, it was actually triggered by me leaving a relationship, as these things go. So left the relationship, woke up the next day, suddenly, boom, everything's exploded. My energy field has just expanded like there's no tomorrow.
Wow.
And then within about 3 weeks was when I had my first channeling experience. So I basically went into this full like trance, and these like words were coming out and I didn't know what was going on. And then a few days later, I had another very pivotal experience, which was when I was just laying on my bed, and suddenly it was like, I think 2:30 in the morning, like definitely wide awake for this experience. And suddenly the world around me just dissolved. It was like the walls weren't there and the bed wasn't there. And I was just like floating in space. And suddenly I'm on the edge of the cosmos, and I got it. Like I actually just got it, like that, the creation, like how we actually exist as human beings, and the matrix of shared reality that we as human beings, as a collective consciousness, have decided to agree upon in this universe. Like we have actually created this, our thoughts, our energy have actually created this. And when I got that, I was like, well, if we've created this, can we change it?
Oh my gosh.
That was the game changer.
Why don't you have a Nobel Prize? Really? What's going on here? You
because
solved
the
so much.
scientists don't listen to me.
Have you tried to talk to scientists about this and they've rejected you?
Yes. Oh, I have a lot of very sciencey friends who think I'm absolutely nuts and don't talk to me anymore.
Really? What?
Oh yeah.
Do you think that's helped your ascension? You think, by cutting them out? Because what I'm getting from you is that everybody should break up with their boyfriends or girlfriends.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
That's what I'm taking away.
Yeah, we'll just prescribe that as like the awakening pill, right?
Yeah. Now, and look, I'm single right now, so why am I not there where you are? I mean, really, this is crazy. This is crazy. Okay, so wait a minute.
You haven't had a deep enough traumatic breakup yet, I think.
I think you're right. I think this is
It means you need to go get into a relationship, get really caught up in the cycles of 3D reality, and then come out the other end of the tunnel and be like, okay, I'm ascended now.
Yes. Is that what you prescribed for me? Is that what you're getting from the energy field? Oh,
definitely not.
Okay, so look. Isha, this is like you are, I mean, there's so many different directions, but I feel like I want to really, you wanted to talk about planetary ascension. And I definitely want to hit that. Well, first of all, I want to talk about aliens, but and maybe this is related to planetary ascension.
It's all the same.
Yeah, okay. Great. So here's what confuses me about planetary ascension. It seems historically, starting, back in the 60s, right? Like dawning of the age of Aquarius, then we hear about 2012. And I mean, all these big David Wilcock, like, he's like mainstream, like Gaia New Agey, saying like 2012, that's when it's going to happen. Like, everyone's pineal gland is going to just
supposed to happen.
It was, or did it happen?
No, it was supposed to happen and it didn't.
Oh, okay. So two questions. First of all, why is planetary ascension like? What's the difference between what's probably happening right now versus when every other like psychic and new agey kind of person was talking about it like years and years ago? And then, like, can you speak to why it didn't happen and what exactly is happening?
Well, that's a really big question. And again, I am quite limited in what I can say in a public forum, but I am quite connected to what's happening at the galactic level. So what they're doing. Okay, so it was supposed to happen by 2012. That was the ideal timeline, and particularly actually on the solstice. So December 21st, 2012 was supposed to be like the major tipping point. Now, back then, I wasn't even doing what I'm doing now. So I laugh at, where I was back then and go, oh, okay, like that's quite funny.
Yeah.
But look, planetary ascension is two things. Primarily, it's that we still at the moment are in harmony with free divine will. And so knowing that we as a collective consciousness have created this reality, really the shift has to come from inside of us. It has to come from our desire to awaken and uplift. And as much as these higher dimensional beings, or whatever you want to call them, like angelic guides, whatever, are very much supporting this process, we as humans still have to agree to that, because if we don't, and if enough of us aren't awake enough to actually make that call, then it's
Right.
impeding free will, right? And that is just another form of control, which goes against the whole high vibrational pathway that we're trying to take to get to this. So this is where the whole concept of like star seeds and light workers come in. And I don't know if you're familiar with Dolores Cannon's work, but she speaks a little bit
A
about
little bit, yeah.
volunteers. And so basically, and I have conscious memory of this because this was something that I awakened quite early on in my journey. This like sound went out through the universe, and it's the best way to describe it. Like some people call it the clarion call, but I just remember it as like a massive sound wave, and that sound wave had a meaning. And suddenly I just felt like Earth needed me. And I remember just dropping everything and incarnating. It was like, off you go, like, just
Right.
sort of plunked myself down. And yeah, basically came in with the intention to help people awaken from the inside, because there's only so much that the guides can do from outside of this third dimensional realm. And even though they are supporting and they're helping with the light grids and they're actually doing a lot behind the scenes at, the galactic levels and stuff, but it still has to come from within us. And at the end of the day, you can also say, well, we are them. And so there's not that much distinction, but just being inside this paradigm and inside what's being created here in this shared reality, there are certain things that, I don't know, I don't like to use the word rules, but there's a certain way that things sort of happen in this universe. And there's certain constructs that we've all agreed to in terms of how things play out, in terms of manifesting and just the way that we create the reality. So for a fleet of starships to come down suddenly and just say, all right, you're all ascended now, that's not the highest vibrational pathway to do this. Because humanity, firstly, from a frequency perspective, humanity would go into fear. And can you imagine what 7.8 billion people in fear would create instantly in that field? Like that's just,
right.
That's not conducive. So what we wanted to do was actually come in and have a much more gentle approach of, can we come in, can we, become teachers, can we become light workers, can we slowly, awaken those around us and to just spread that light so that we as humans can help other humans to awaken and lift out of those frequencies and come into our own conscious awareness of everything that we're connected to. And it's a very difficult process in many ways because of the disconnect.
Yeah.
In all other time-space realities, dimensions above the third dimension, there is a level of connectedness to source that many people on this planet right now are just missing. I mean, you only have to look at how many people don't even believe in God right now to say, well, okay, that just shows you where humanity's at. Like we don't even
Right.
remember our creator, So
Yeah.
So that to me just is indicative of where the collective consciousness is. And no, you can't just come in and just like wave a magic wand and fix it, because there are repercussions to that at the frequency level. So we have to really do this in a very gentle sort of approach, which invites humans to willingly choose to step into their awakening.
Wow. Is it happening right now? Really?
Oh, absolutely.
Like what is the difference between, what is the difference between, right? Like what are the real signs that we can see it happening?
Veganism.
Or feel it. Veganism?
Yeah, I mean, just people are starting to feel that connection with animals. You look at, all the people that are fighting for the planet, like the children, like Greta Thunberg, like she's just come in with this really strong message, and I feel like she's a very strong light worker. There's a lot of people that are coming in with that level of raised consciousness, particularly the next waves of children that are coming through. They just, like, I know so many people who say to me their kids just talk to spirits and stuff. Like it's just, an everyday sort of thing. And I'm seeing more and more and more of that. So definitely there is a shift that's happening, but there's also quite a bit of backlash that comes in from the beings that don't want this to happen. And COVID is a classic example of that,
Right, right.
At the frequency level, I looked at what happened. Like 2020 was supposed to be this massive big year for Planetary Ascension. It was meant to be like the next 2012. And
right.
then virus hits, and it's just like, it's devastating to see that these frequencies still have a resonance within our reality, because at the end of the day, if that fear frequency didn't exist within us as a collective consciousness, no virus can exist. For me, like because I look at the earth grids, I actually look at the energy of like cities and places and, like countries and stuff. And like just to give the example of Australia, in Victoria, in Melbourne in particular, I've been working with their grids back and forth for a number of years now, and it's been the lowest density vibrational city in Australia for quite some time now. And so when all this COVID stuff started happening, they're the ones that got hit the worst,
Yeah.
right? And all the
Right.
other places, like then, like I'm mindful of what's happening with the grids in Sydney and what's happening with the grids in Byron Bay, and like, there are certain things that I predicted like months and months ago would happen just based on the energy of those places, knowing that those are the ones that were likely to get hit the most. Now, I know, people that are more in that sort of scientific medical sort of framework go, oh, well, no, actually, it's just because somebody came on a plane and then it spread and this is what happened. But I'm looking at it going, okay, but here are the resonant frequencies, and here's where specific vibrations of people and situations and things are being drawn to. And a lot of it is to do with just the pockets of energy in those places.
Right.
So yeah, I did pick that Melbourne was going to be the worst, and a couple of other things as well, just based on the energy. Like Byron Bay is about to be the next, big thing, which I can already see from a mile away.
Right.
But there's also spots in Australia that are a bit more high vibrational where it just shows, because like WA, for example, has the best light grids in Australia, and their grids have been holding for quite some time now, and we've had very few cases. So I just look at energy. I look at the flow of energy, and I look to see what resonates with what, because at the end of the day, it's all just law of attraction. So when a space or something has a low vibrational frequency, it's more likely to attract something of that same resonance. Whereas if we, and as cliche as it sounds, if we all just truly lived in a love-based frequency with no fear or anxiety,
Right.
the virus wouldn't exist in our society. Like the frequency of that virus would have nothing to attach to at the frequency level.
Whoa. This is like, ooh, okay. I gotta like sit here and take this in. I'm trying to imagine what you're like at a coffee shop. Like, are you, how often are you talking about this stuff?
Actually quite a lot, because I do this full time. And so, I'm quite immersed in this space. But I will also happily just have an almond hot chocolate and be normal for a day.
This is so, okay. Yeah, you're talking about like how you can't, look, I really need to get into this. You cannot publicly speak about what's happening at the galactic level. Where do we even are we talking like Anunnaki stuff? Like, are we?
No. Do not go there.
Is that you think that's not like, don't go that direction? Is there anything there? Zachariah Stitchin?
I connect with high vibrational beings of light, for example, Ashtar and the Ashtar Command. And my whole like star family lineage comes through that. So Ashtar's last name is Shayran, and
Right.
so we all have multidimensional like soul aspects of ourselves, right? So we have, like, there's me, there's Isha who's in 3D, but there's also versions of me, like the same soul energy, that are existing in other time, space, realities, planets, whatever. So one of those soul expressions that I have that comes through that lineage, her name is Lily, and she's a fifth dimensional being. Now, Lily's last name is also Shayran because she's part of the Ashtar Shayran family, right?
Right.
So she's basically, yeah, in a way we're kind of the same, but it's like, fingers of a hand. It's like, just how far do you go down, right? How far do you go down that trajectory? Because it's like, if Isha is one of these fingers, then Lily is another one. And, there's like all these different ones, but then the soul is like the hand. So the whole soul group, or the oversoul, is like that bigger picture perspective. So it's just like what framework you're looking at to then see where those
are they here? Are they here on this earth right now? Some of them.
Lily, well, it's not quite like that. So
there's a guy on Twitter. Who he's talked about Ishtar before. Actually, this guy said something that was like, the reason they canceled the first SpaceX rocket launch was because Ivanka Trump got like a message from Ishtar to cancel it at that moment. Like, it was like, he wrote this thing on Twitter about that, which I was like, that's interesting. And then he's like, yeah, they're pleading creatures. They're walking around Earth. They are here. Here's one of them. And then he like put up this picture of this person. And yeah, they had this glow, like their eyes were almost like light, like white light. And it was like, yeah, they're walking among us, these aliens. What is your view on that? What
Well,
does
we're
that
all
even mean?
aliens in some regard.
We're all
Our
aliens. Okay, okay. Are more people just tapped into this galactic force? Is that what you think this person was saying? Or
Yeah, it just depends on how expansive your consciousness is around this, because um I
like, can
don't
you look at a
see
crowd and be like, that person's not from this planet?
I don't look at it like that, and nor do I segregate or separate like that, because actually we're all the same. So we're either all human or we're all alien. Like we're all one consciousness in different forms, you know. So
Whoa.
I just think that, you know, people get really caught up in like the names and the titles and stuff, whereas I look at it
Yeah,
and okay, well, like on this planet I'm a human, and on this planet you're a human, but off this planet we're both not humans as well. So like
yeah.
however you framework that, you know, is up to you.
Interesting. Huh. Have you astral traveled to other planets, or I don't know if that's even the proper term. Like, what's going on out there?
Yeah, multi-dimensional travel is the more appropriate term that I would use. Um,
Is that something you're awakening people to be able to do?
yeah, I teach that. Yeah, that's literally what I teach people how to do. So that's like, yeah, I help them to expand in their consciousness so that they can start connecting with these beings and traveling in those spaces as well. And then utilizing that for the purposes of energy healing, because that's one of the pathways that I've brought it into. So for example, when somebody joins my Origin Activation Practitioner Training Program, the first part of that program is opening their multidimensional heart gateway, connecting to their soul aspects, connecting to their guides, and then being able to utilize that connection to actually bring healing to people on this planet.
Wow, wow. What would you say? I mean, uh, Isha, I hate to make this like a session, but I don't really. Here's my question for you. What is going on with me in the sense that, like, obviously I'm doing a podcast where I'm interviewing people like you, but I still have, like, there's something inside of me, and maybe it's because, I always say it goes back to being a magician as a kid, like doing card tricks and like seeing that, like, there's a lot of charlatans out there. There are a lot of psychics and people. So I'm like, I have more in my dad's an engineer or studied engineering. So I have more of a skeptical bent typically. And yet, like, I'm going along with you. I'm fascinated by this story and in all these higher realms. Like, what do I do? How do I do I have to work with, do I have to sign up for your class? I mean, what exactly is going on? Where's the, like, disconnect between my intellectual curiosity and actually being to experience multidimensional awakening, you think?
Well, a good starting point really is through the chakras, because the chakra systems are your portals, your connection point to these higher dimensional spaces. So, yeah, when you start opening all of your chakras and using the right tools and practices, what happens is particularly if you open the heart, it starts opening you up to those levels of experience. Now, I've worked with clients like you who they come to me very in their head, just like intellectualizing everything, have never experienced anything.
Right.
I have one particular client in my mind right now. As I say this, it took them about, I think, 3 months of doing sessions with me. And then finally, this person had this experience of just, they felt an energy in their heart and they couldn't understand how I was sitting over here, they were sitting 2 meters in front of me, and how this energy was having a physical impact on this person. Right. It's one of
Yeah.
those beautiful experiences in my career, actually, to have seen that person who was so, like, just like, he obviously was, you know, trusted me enough to be there to pay me, you know, for the session, but had no concept of how this was going to work. And then to have
Right.
this moment of, oh my God, I actually feel something. And it was just by clearing his heart chakra, you know, like that particular person that I have in mind. It was yeah, it took a lot of, like, energetic cleansing on my part, and there were multiple sessions to get this person to a point where they were able to feel that, because there was so much disconnect. And people just live, like, their consciousness lives so far in their heads that they're actually not connected to their hearts, you know. And your
Mm.
heart is actually how you feel, and your heart is how you discern as well, right? So even just simple practices, like there's one that I teach quite frequently to my clients, is you just breathe into your heart space and you connect to that light that we all have, because each and every one of us has what I call like the light of your soul. You know, it's like, it literally looks like a little flame to me, and it sits
Wow.
in everybody's energy center. It's like right in the center of your energetic heart. And when you, again, where attention goes, energy flows, right? So you bring your awareness into that heart and you start seeing that flame open and expand. What happens for people is that light starts to open up and it starts to get bigger. It's not that it wasn't there, but sometimes I look at people's energy field and it's very dimmed. You know, it's a very dim sort of light. So when you bring your conscious awareness to it, it allows that energy flow to expand and grow bigger. And that ultimately allows you to start experiencing more of your full energetic self. So you can start realizing that you're actually a spirit in a body rather than just a body that's walking this earth.
Wow. Do you think I have it? Do you think I could ascend?
Everyone has it. Everyone has it. And, you know, the fact that
I need to know, Isha. I
well, the
need,
fact that you exist means that you come from source, right? And
right,
so it is
right.
not possible for creation to exist without that light. Now, it's just a case of how connected are you to that, right?
Mm. I wonder if it's because of the lack of discipline and practice. And what I mean is this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the answer. Is that probably the
That
answer?
is definitely a part of that, yeah.
Oh, darn it. Darn it. I have to work for this. Oh, man.
Yeah,
I re
you actually have to, you know, meet it halfway a little bit.
Oh my gosh. Why can't I just be one of these people that just like wakes up one day and sees angels everywhere like I
Well,
am?
you can, but the people who do that go through massive trauma to get there.
Okay, well,
So,
sounds like
you
they
know,
gotta.
this is like reality check for you over here. It's like you can go through a nice peaceful transition and you can just like, you know, consciously start to awaken and do the practices and like lift your energy field the same way that you take a bath every day. It's like you have to cleanse your energy field as well to reconnect when you're first starting out.
Yeah,
And if you constantly keep not doing it, not doing it, not doing it, what happens is energy is always moving and energy is always creating. See, you are always in a state of creation, whether you like it or not. And your current energetic state is creating your future reality right now as we speak. So
mm,
without doing the practices and without actually taking that time to maintain your energy can get very dense and it can get very stagnant, and that's going to create all sorts of issues in the future, like, you know, health problems and even just manifesting like horrible things. And, you know, this is where you actually have to realize that each and every one of us is
okay.
responsible for the reality that we create. And I think that's a very hard pill to swallow for some people. The obvious question that comes up then is, what about the people that were like, you know, sexually abused as children and all of that? And that's usually the first thing that people ask. So this comes down to the shared reality that we've created and the collective consciousness that still allows that
Yeah,
stuff to happen. Because if everyone on this planet had opened their heart gateways and was connected, if you realize that by raping a child, you would feel that pain yourself, you would never do that. But because of that
mm,
disconnect and that lack of oneness, it allows the consciousness to still facilitate that sort of experience, right?
yeah, yeah. I'm
But if
really
you can
scared for
just
my
take
future right now.
responsibility,
You're
well, look,
scaring me.
the
You're like,
beautiful
Greg, if
part,
you keep down this path, you are gonna have disease, you're gonna have terrible things.
well, it's not about the fear. It's actually like if you can flip that mindset to actually say, well, oh my God, I can actually create my reality. That's exciting. Like
Right.
that to me excites me because yeah, I've given you a reality check, but you've also now gotten the key to your own future.
Oh my gosh. What do
Yeah.
I?
Yeah, everyone does. Everyone does. We just don't know that we have it. And we get so caught up in trying to think that life is happening to us rather than
Mm,
recognizing that we are creating life, that we are life,
right.
right? And the moment
Ah,
you understand that, you go, okay, well, look, this is what I've created so far. Do I like it? Yes or no? If you do, great. If not, you can change it right now. And that is like the biggest piece of empowerment that you can receive. Like if you get that one piece of wisdom, and to anyone watching this, if you get that one piece of wisdom today, you can change your life today.
wow. What about, I mean, what do you say about like sociopaths and narcissists? Like, what about these people that it just seems like they lack awareness, they're causing harm to others, and they're not, there's something not able to connect to this. Like what's happening in the universe with that?
It's just different stages of disconnect. It's just those people are further down the pathway of disconnection than like the normal humans.
Huh. Do you think there is a room for a psychopath to ascend?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Because there's two aspects to this. One is that a person can have a spontaneous awakening at any time. That's up to their soul's journey. I don't know, what determines that. But then there's also the coming back to planetary ascension, there's a collective vibration. And actually, we only need a small percentage of people on this planet to be holding that high vibrational frequency for the whole collective matrix around that to shift.
I really, you know what I really want to ask you? I have a feeling you're not going to want to answer this question. You ready for this? Do you think Donald Trump is enlightened or could ascend?
I think there's always the potential. I think he's quite far away from that right now. But I see the potential in everyone. You could put Hitler in front of me and I'd say this being has the potential to ascend because that light, no matter how small or how dim, is in every single being. And I see that no matter what.
Yeah.
So no matter how far they are down that spectrum, the possibility is always there. I don't think you can look at something and say, oh, this person has no hope or this person has no chance, because that's just not fair on them. And the other aspect to this is also what framework you hold for people, because your thoughts of someone can also create their reality as well. There's a there's a book called I forget what it's called, but it's by Greg Braden, and he's quite well known for working with like the Matrix and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
there's a story in that book about this monk, and this monk, he has his students that come around him, and he says to them, just try and push me over. And he's sitting like really, really, really still, and this room full of his students, they try and push him and they can't knock him over. And then he comes out of his meditation and his student's like, what were you doing? And he said, well, I visualized myself. I was sitting between two mountains and I had these big ropes and the mountains were holding me. And no matter what happened, I was like the mountain and I wasn't going to move. And because he had that in his consciousness, his mind is so powerful that his body responded to that. So all these students push him over and he was as solid as a rock, like a mountain,
Wow.
And this really, demonstrates the power of your mind and the power of consciousness. Now, if we extend that concept into not just what that monk did for himself, but how you view somebody else, when you see the highest potential in somebody else, even if they don't see it in that moment, you holding that frame really, really strongly, and you're looking at someone and you see the light within them, in that moment, that light exists. That can change their reality.
Oh my gosh, Isha, look, I definitely have to talk about your course. But before I do, because I know we're running up on time, with the UFOs, U.S. Pentagon, the Pentagon right now is saying that we might have stuff from aliens, things, craft and technology that wasn't made on Earth. Is that the same interdimensional beings that you communicate with, or is that something completely different? What is happening with UFOs and aliens right now in the mainstream media versus the truth? I know that's a huge question, but can you sum it up in a...
Well, firstly, there are lots of different interdimensional beings. The ones that are communicating through like the White House and stuff like that aren't necessarily the same ones that I'm in contact with. I'm aware of who beings are, and
I was wondering about that.
There's different factions of like interdimensional beings as well. It's a whole thing, because even in that space, not all the beings have the intention to support planetary ascension.
Right.
So for me, it's a given that, these beings exist. I'm not questioning their existence. So for those that are questioning their existence, I'm assuming that they're real because I've had enough contact experiences myself. But even within that space, there are the beings that are working towards like lifting up the frequency into love and, and helping humanity through that process. And then there are also the beings that want to keep humanity in fear because they literally feed off the human emotions of fear. So there's a whole like energetic thing going on in some of those
There is a
spaces.
war. There is a dark versus light thing going on Earth, and it feels like there's one still going on in space.
Right. Only in the third and fourth dimension. And this is where you have to understand the dimensional frequencies and realities, because the fourth dimension is the astral, and the astral, this is the thing. The war exists, but it's equally an illusion. And this is where people are getting really caught up in that, in the actual matrix of it. And so there's like the matrix, and then there's the game behind the game. And the game behind the game is that we're all actually unified field consciousness, and the whole rest of it is bullshit. So this whole rubbish game that's playing out in the astral and in the third dimension, that's translating through. If you can see beyond that, it's actually a really beautiful reality that we have access to. And that's the one that we're trying to bring in, to actually just bypass a lot of, not bypass, but sort of transcend a lot of these frequencies in that mid space, to transcend that duality framework and actually come back into that unified field consciousness of connectedness. And in that space, it is actually all just love, you know, because we are all from the same creation, whether we're existing in the 3D or the 4D or anything else. There is a one consciousness, a one unified field that we all can exist from, and that we can all create, you know, in that space. So yeah, there's beings, and my personal fingers crossed hope is that when Trump leaves his office kicking and screaming, that he's actually going to do cosmic disclosure. It's something that I have seen as a potential timeline, but there's so much fluctuation in like what's happening in that space. But I'm not surprised that this stuff is coming up right now, because I called it like, I think over a year ago, I was saying to people that, you know, Trump's going to go kicking and screaming, and there's a few certain things around like UFOs and stuff that are going to get revealed.
Right.
And so I'm seeing some of that playing out now from what I saw like over a year ago. But the timelines are fluctuating so much at the moment, because there is this, different agendas that are trying to come in at the moment. And so what I guess, you know, in all of that, where I'm trying to stay really centered is just keep focusing on that light, and keep focusing on what we're actually radiating out. And again, it's one of those reasons why I don't get too caught up in the conspiracies and what's happening in the White House and all of that sort of stuff. And I just focus on like holding that vision of an already ascended earth, where there is that beauty and that unity and that love. Because again, you understand how consciousness and reality and creation works, right?
Yeah.
Which is that when enough of us hold that shared vision, it actually brings it to life.
I mean, I should say I don't understand it fully, but I understand that there's something to understand.
Concept.
Yes,
right.
Yes. This is, oh my gosh, Isha, I could really just keep going forever. But you know what? What I appreciate is that you are working with people, trying to show them the game behind the game. So let's talk about, like, very briefly, I mean, I'm going to link to this. You have a program called New Earth Rising, helping people activate these energies, rise in leadership, help others awaken, and increase your abundance. Is what you're doing directly connected to, you know, what you've really been talking about in terms of, like, do you see yourself as awakening people to this, what's going on behind the matrix? What are people going to get out of your course? And your work, the membership?
Yeah, so we do have a monthly membership called New Earth Rising, and what you get in that is an opportunity to connect with like-minded beings. It is largely targeted at the entrepreneurial networks, so people who are wanting to step into leadership, particularly like we have a lot of coaches, healers, that sort of thing in the group. And it's for people who want to, two aspects of it. One is they want to receive the activations for themselves to actually open up their own, you know, their own chakras and their own multidimensional gateways. They want to open up their psychic abilities. They want to open up their abundance flow, because that's all connected as well. And then it's also for people who are later on thinking of going down the road of actually being healers full time, or being, you know, in this sort of space, helping to awaken others. Because I do take people through journeys of like stepping into that leadership. And a lot of my clients end up transitioning from 9-to-5 businesses into becoming coaches, healers, speakers, that sort of thing. But as for the actual program components itself, you get an activation every week. And then we also get give you access to my famous program, which is the 5-day money challenge. Now, that program alone, the record for that to date, 2 people have made $10,000 from doing the 5-day money challenge. Another component that you get in that is the 90-day alignment map, which is my trademark system of calm, connection, and clarity. And in that, we take you through a process of first calming your nervous system, because that's really, really important before you start connecting to higher guides. So we get your body really prepared for it. We get your energy really prepared for it. Then we take you into the second phase of that, which is helping you to get connected to your intuition. And we teach you how to connect to your higher self in that process as well. And then from there, we move you into a phase of clarity where you start utilizing your connection to actually help you in your life, to help you make decisions, to help you start figuring out where you want to go with your career and your business and that sort of thing.
Wow. This sounds like a great course. I'm going to link to it so people can see. I hope it helps me find love and then helps me break up in a devastating way so I can ascend too. It sounds like that's what I'm still getting from this whole thing. No, this is great. This is great. Look, Isha Patel, so interesting, so fascinating. I'm going to keep following your work. I hope all my listeners and viewers do as well. Yeah, it's really been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on Open Loops.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for having me. It's been a very fun discussion. Love to come again sometime.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks again. And take care.
You too. Bye.
So, what did I actually get out of this conversation that I did buy into? I buy into the idea that if we're going to ascend, it has to come from within us as opposed to just waiting for some UFOs up there. I buy that there is ultimately, and you know, she put it as like forces of dark and light, which reminds me of Lost. Gosh, love Lost. But forces of dark and light, and then behind that duality of evil versus light, there's like the one source. I buy it. I also buy that I definitely need to practice meditation if I'm going to be awakening my dimensions here, because right now I'm not seeing anything besides darkness and or I'm falling asleep. But she makes you want to meditate, which I love. And she really does have an enthusiasm and a charisma that is, I mean, look, I did this virtual class with her. It's infectious. You want to keep expanding. You do want to believe in all this stuff. And as someone that's like a hard skeptic like me, it made me want to explore more, which I do in subsequent episodes. I'm very excited to keep going down this path. Isha just speaks to the Galactic command on a regular basis? What? It's a little wild. Also, origin activation as being something deeper than a traditional meditative process or hypnosis. That, to me, I still don't fully have a grasp on what origin activation is. I'd be very curious about it. I'd be curious if it's happening to me right now. She's dealing with the energy grids. Like maybe she feels like there's something coming towards me and she needs to adjust me. Isha, if you are listening consciously, not like not, you know, just actually listening to your episode, which I hope you do too, and I hope I did you justice. Thank you. But if you are telepathically, I suppose, listening to me, look, just help me out a little bit, okay? Like, I just need a little support. You know what? Me and everybody, we all need it. Yeah, she's doing a good job, though. She's adjusting the energy grids. Everybody else out there who works with her is sitting and meditating and working on fixing the world. Global Ascension 2020. Can you imagine if 2020 was not what it was right now? How would these healers stay in business? My gosh, if this was like the best year ever, would the healers just be like, yeah, see, this was what we were doing before. Yeah. Yes, that's the cynical brain. Look, I loved having her on. I would absolutely have Isha on again. She's working on a book right now. Check out New Earth Rising. I really hope that she comes back and continue to expand based on the ideas that she has. Because while I'm not communicating with, Ashtar on a regular basis, a lot of people seem to be seeing UFOs and aliens and experiencing this in the world. So that means there's something there. And if Isha is going to be the way in, I think she's a pretty good human being to be able to relay that message.